Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Heather Tillery on the podcast. I got that right. See, I was a little bit nervous on that last name. It can be a little bit tricky at times, but she's coming to us all the way from Georgia. I know everyone, another Georgian on the podcast. Like I told her before we started recording this podcast, there must be something in the water down there. But yeah, she's an IFBB pro. If you couldn't tell from her little, insignia that she has on her, hey, that's awesome. You gotta rep it. Hey, if I ever turn pro in that, I would be wearing that, 24/7. But yeah, she's on here to share her health and fitness journey and discuss all things health and fitness. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Heather, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Well, I ask this every single damn time, no matter how many times I hear this is the worst icebreaker of all time. It's just because, first off, I'm tired of everyone, and second of all, it works every time. What's the weather like today?
It's actually a beautiful day here. About 68 degrees outside. Nice sweater weather.
Yep, I told her it's a little bit colder here, and it's going to get a little bit colder, but, hey, we're used to it up here. It's nothing that we can't really handle here. But before we dive into, what the weather's going to be like in the next couple of months up here, because I say this a million times, but, it's not going to be pleasant in the next few months up here. So before I depress myself on that, Heather, why don't you just to get things started, give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to eventually become a bodybuilder and how that led to where you're at right now?
So in a different life, I was actually a professional dancer. I danced for arena football team down in Macon, Georgia. And that kind of got me in the gym. In college, I gained the freshman 15 because I would order the Outback Bloomin' Onions to my dorm room and I would just have at it. Anyway, realized I needed to start prioritizing my health. And I started running a lot. I was running 3 to 5 miles a day, ate out the cartilage in my right knee, had to have knee surgery. And after that, I was like, okay, crap, what am I going to do? And so I dated a guy briefly that was very fit. And so I was like, oh, I'll try my hand at weightlifting. And then over the years, just kind of fell in love with it. I was a Planet Fitness goer. Then got through grad school and moved up further out of Atlanta and found a little gym. And the owner of the gym came to me and said, hey, have you ever considered competing? And I was like, ew, no, I do not like the way those girls look. Like even bikini girls, it's crazy. And I was married at the time, and my husband was like, no, you're not doing that. And so did some investigating, went to some shows, realized that it was not as sexualized as I thought from the outside looking in, and kind of fell in love with the way that they looked. I did start in bikini in 2016. If wellness had been a thing back then, I was genetically gifted for wellness. I was very big in my legs and did not have much of an upper body. My feedback from that show was, you're too big for a bikini. So I took 2 years off and grew into the figure division. I was working with Matt Porter at the time. As y'all know, he's passed, but he was an excellent coach preparing me for that. I did the Orlando Europa and ended up winning, but my feedback again was, bring up your upper body. And I was very big on the mindset of not stepping on a national stage until I felt like I could win it. And it was, you never know who's going to show up, but I at least want to have a shot at winning. I don't want to go knowing that I'm not pro quality. And so took 2 more years off, competed, decided to cross over into women's physique for the first time in 2020. I did figure and physique. I ended up placing third in figure against 2 very amazing girls who went pro very shortly after. And then I won the overall in women's physique. And I was like, okay, well, a new adventure, get to grow some more. And so we did talk briefly about jumping into a national show 3 weeks after that one. But in all honesty, my legs were not lean enough. I knew they weren't. And I work with Matt Jansen. He's my coach and he's amazing. And I told him, I said, Matt, I'm not going to have striated glutes in 3 weeks. Not healthily anyway. And so Matt, one thing I really enjoy about him is he's very transparent with his athletes. And he said, I've never had so much trouble getting an athlete lean before. We need to look into what's going on with you. So I did something called a Dutch test. And what that is a urine test every 24 hours, and it tells you all about your hormones. And I also had some blood work ran. My testosterone level was 4. My progesterone was 0, literally 0. I had none. And my estrogen was like 180. So I was very imbalanced.
How is that possible to have literally 0?
Yeah. It like registered as less than 0.1 was the and I had at the time I had a progesterone only IUD. So I think that the progesterone that the IUD was providing was keeping my body from producing any. And I've never wanted children. So when Matt was like, I really think that the answer to this is you coming off of birth control and letting your body regulate naturally. I was like, oh, yeah, but I really don't want to get pregnant. So I did some soul searching. I did some praying and decided to have my fallopian tubes removed. And I did that in October of 2021. And so, actually, yes, October 2021. And started getting TRT treatment at a hormone clinic nearby. And since then, my health has been significantly improved. I have more energy. I feel better overall, and I have not stored body fat the way that I did before. Um, this was the first prep in 2022 that I have done where I have not had to kill myself with cardio or starve. I had weekly refeeds with Chipotle and pancakes probably till 8 weeks out, and that was completely unheard of. Like if Matt ever refed me, it was rice. So the fact that I got to have anything that was enjoyable was a big deal. And it wasn't until about the 8 week out mark that I decided to jump into figure as well because I had lost so much weight that I felt. I also on Instagram had seen a couple of the girls I knew would be competing. I also knew they had about 10 to 15 pounds on me in women's physique. And in discussing with Matt, he was like, well, I do think you have a pretty shape. So if you win your overalls at your local show, then you can compete in those divisions at North Americans. And so I did. And South Carolina I qualified by winning the overall in figure and physique. So we jumped into North Americans. I placed fourth in women's physique against some very incredible women and ended up winning my class in figure. So I cried as soon as I stepped off stage. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I cannot believe I just did this. It was a rough prep, but it was a lot of fun. I caught the flu at the very beginning of it. I had COVID at 3 weeks out from my qualifier, and I am a nurse practitioner and I manage a clinic in Atlanta. And my entire staff quit on me in April, and so I was running the inpatient and outpatient services for all of heart failure in Atlanta by myself until about August, and then I got to get some staff and get some help. So it was very rough prep, but we did it.
So after all that happened to you, there wasn't one point in your mind that's saying like, hey, maybe I shouldn't continue on with this prep after all that stuff happened?
I never lost sight of the goal because in all honesty, like the diet and the training, when you're that deep into it, it's just the routine. And I actually have more trouble in off season being out of the routine because I do like the regimen. And it's a very hard gear to switch mentally after. But I think it being so busy at work probably helped me because I didn't think about food at all. I was too busy.
Does Well, I mean, one of the things that I really appreciate and like the most about your story is that how you took all those years off, because so many people, they just jump right into it and then they just, like they'd say like, oh, I'm just going to move up to figure physique, this next off season, and then just, put on, like 30 pounds. And then it's just that it would just be the most unhealthiest thing ever. But was that hard for you at all to take those years off? Because I know for a lot of people, once they get on that stage, it's hard to go a significant amount of time without walking on that stage and feeling, that just that high that you really get when you're able to show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on.
It is very, very hard mental gear to switch, especially because this last year I prepped for 228 days. Like I was in prep for 9 months. And so, like my poor husband, we got married in January, and I started
That
prep
guy's
the
a
day after we got
saint.
home.
I gotta say
He
that.
is,
9 months.
and he does not compete and has never competed. And we got married in January. This was my first prep with him, and so we waited until September to be able to enjoy our life together, really. And so, yeah, he's amazing, very patient and kind, and he prepped all my meals for me, which was really helpful, especially because of how busy I was. The support system makes a huge difference too, I will say. And so, I lost track of the question.
I just gotta say, first of all, he makes all your meals for you. He lets you convert the guest room into your own.
Yeah,
This guy, jeez.
he's a good one. I got lucky.
Yeah, no, that is great. But I mean, like, this is so much more of a mental sport than it is a physical sport, and so many people
Oh, for
just don't
sure.
understand that. Like, they'll just recognize, like, if they haven't seen you for like 5 years, they'll be like, "Oh, wow, Heather, you look amazing." They don't understand that mental transformation that's taken place as well. What has this journey been like for you mentally?
Um, so you had asked about taking the time off and how it affected me. And so one thing that I make sure to do is that on the other side of the show, I always have something planned to look forward to. And so actually in this prep, I started taking Krav Maga lessons and belted in Krav. during prep. And at the 8 week mark, I was like, okay, I'm really fatigued. My body needs rest. So I backed off, but I also had plans to jump right back into it as soon as I got done. So having another physical and mental outlet and another thing that I could focus on, and also being able to enjoy my life with my husband. So I take so much time off for two reasons. One is because it's not healthy for a female to stay at that level of leanness, nor is it healthy for us to manipulate our hormones that much. Your body needs to find homeostasis and stay there for a while. That's how you grow, that's how you improve. I like to look like a different athlete every time I step on stage. I don't want to look the same. That's counterproductive. The whole point is to grow. My feedback is to grow. I'm going to make sure that I have grown before I compete again. And also to have longevity in the sport, you need balance. You need time away from the stage. You need time to have a life outside of bodybuilding, because so many people, I think, get so focused onto this that they lose sight of anything else in their lives. And bodybuilding is a lifestyle, but it is not your life, and it shouldn't be. And so I make a point to uphold relationships and spend time with my friends and do things that are social for their sakes that I can't do in prep because of fatigue, or I don't like to be around a lot of food when I'm in prep. It's hard for me. So I just don't. Um, but as far as the mental journey over the last 6 years, it's been a lot of ups and downs. I'm very hard on myself. Um, I would tell you I was realistic, and then other people would tell you I have terrible body dysmorphia. And so the guy that owns my gym saw me in Pittsburgh, and I was like, 2 days out from my show, I'm telling him I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I don't know. I don't know if I can do this. And he was like, I'm going to tell you right now, you have terrible body dysmorphia and you need to get out of your head. And I was like, okay. And I remember being in Matt Jansen's hotel room on Wednesday, going on stage on Friday and telling him, I don't feel like I'm ready. I don't want to step on stage and get second call outs. I'd rather not do it. And he said, Heather, I need you to go to your hotel and lay down and chill out. I would not have let you come if you weren't ready. And so I did. And I dropped like 6 pounds overnight just relaxing. And so it is a big mental game, because cortisol plays a huge role into your body's responses too. And so I just had to relax and enjoy the process. And I'm so glad I did.
Now, obviously, like everyone who isn't competing can still have body dysmorphia, but at what point in your journey do you really think that you started to develop it? Because when you become a bodybuilder, I have always said that like you should like have to sign a contract that like at the very bottom says like P.S. you are going to get body dysmorphia. Just accept it. You're never going to be big enough. But at what point in your journey did you think, bodybuilding wise? Because obviously, like I said, most people can have body dysmorphia, without even touching a weight. But when do you think that really started to take a hold of you? Because for some people, it might be like a couple of weeks like into their journey, and then for other people it's like years.
So I will say I had terrible body dysmorphia before I ever started competing. It was something that I struggled with terribly as a child. I do have a touch of autism. And so I was not very popular growing up. I was actually made fun of, even by members of my own church. And so I was very socially awkward, very introverted. And I also developed very early as a young woman. I think like 12, I was called jailbait because I looked like I was 18. And so that alone, I think, made me very conscious of my body. And I got a lot of attention, but also got made fun of a lot, So I developed a lot of anxiety, and just self-criticism. And I grew up in a wonderful family, like none of it rooted from my family at all. I had incredibly supportive and loving parents. But I remember times like in my darkest moments as working as a nurse, like I remember crying in front of my mirror. Like I would sit there and like just pinch the fat and just cry about it. Like how productive is that? It's not at all. But that was where I was. For me, bodybuilding helps me. I have flare ups. We all get what we call prep goggles. Like, how lean that you want to look on stage. And it's so hard when you're flat and depleted or tired to see the end product, because you don't look like you look on stage any other time. It's only in that moment on stage when you are that dry and hard and rest, that's it. And so it's hard post show. I do struggle because the lines start going away. And that's why I like to have other things that I can look forward to and prioritize that are outside of bodybuilding that kind of takes my mind off of, okay, I'm no longer being judged on the way that I look. I can just try to remember who I am as a person outside of the gym and outside of what I look like or how lean I am. And, but bodybuilding does help me because I feel like I'm working on it. Like if I'm not happy with the way that I look, I know that I know what to do to fix it, and I can. And that's where bodybuilding actually probably saved me.
Yeah, that is, I mean, everyone has some form of it, and like you said, like usually it's a lot of times I found out on this podcast is people that might have had something earlier on in their life, and then when they get into bodybuilding. But yeah, it does save a lot of people, because we've heard of a lot of people's backstories is where they went to that one extreme on the side of like anorexia, bulimia, and then they come into bodybuilding, which is the other extreme. But yeah, it really does, I think, make the biggest difference. And I gotta say, so my best friend in high school he was on the spectrum. Like, I don't know how bad it was. I'm a very sarcastic person, so that made for an interesting dynamic, I will say, for myself, where I do explain to him sometimes, like that I was joking and that I was just being sarcastic. So yeah, I noticed that just a tad bit from you when I was talking to you. I was like, wait, is that like Connor a little bit? So it's just because I hung out with him so much that like it became like a sixth sense for me, where like I can tell I have severe ADHD, if you couldn't tell already, where like I'm coming off an hour of sleep, everyone, I'm still bouncing off the walls, and so when I told her I'm gonna have my 2 Mountain Dew Kickstars before I go to work, like that's gonna be interesting. Like I don't know if my head's gonna either explode or I'm just gonna, so it should make for an interesting touch. But I mean, this is one of my favorite questions to ask. What was your friends and family's reaction like when you announced them, like, hey, I want to give bodybuilding a try? And how has it evolved as you've gotten more and more into the sport?
So my dad is incredibly supportive. My dad has always weightlifted. He has his own little gym garage. And so when I started actually weight training, he became more and more proud, because he's like, look how strong my daughter is. With his thing, we had a deadlift in competition. Mentally, I knew what his max was, and I was determined that I was going to beat his deadlifting max. And so the day that I sent him a deadlifting video of me deadlifting 425, I was like, eat it, dad. Like, I just beat you. And he was like, we're not going to tell anybody about this. He was like, I'm too old.
That's when, if I was him, I'd have a video of me like saved when I was doing like 435, just to show it back to you, be like, nice try.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that they had video cameras on your phone back then.
That's true. That's true.
And so he's like, I'm too old and damaged to try to deadlift this weight now. And so for him, he likes showing off for people. And like I said, my family has always been incredibly supportive, but they don't understand it. There have been times, like, I've been to Universal Studios with my family in prep before. It's probably, I will never do that again.
They're just like, cover up, Heather, cover up, for God's sake.
Well, it's not even that. It was having to carry my meals around in the park, not having a place to store them. I had to eat like room temperature tilapia, which made me want to barf. And then everybody around me is eating and drinking and whatever. And also having to take that time to go to the gym. My family did not understand that to me is part of my vacation. That's something I want to do. It's fun to me to go to other gyms in the area and experience it. But for them, it's like, why do you have to do that? And I'm like, because it's my vacation too. I'm going at 5 a.m. so that I don't take our time away from the family. So I don't understand why it's an issue. But as time has progressed and they have seen that it wasn't a phase that I was going through and how serious I took the sport, if I've had a local show, they've come to it. They were not in Pittsburgh, but my mom had just had knee surgery and my dad had shoulder surgery 2 weeks before that. So they were kind of crippled, but I think they would have been there otherwise. And they support me the best that they know how to, you know.
Room temperature tilapia. That's the worst thing about your story so far. Good God, that's dedication to the extreme.
It gets that like gelatin on it. I have not eaten tilapia since, and this was 2018. I was like, I'll eat cod all day long. I love it, but don't feed me tilapia.
I had a similar experience where, and it's not even similar, but like I don't even know if they're down there, but Culver's is, big up here kind of in the Midwest. And so I'm not joking when I say this. This is when I was at a different job. I got a chocolate shake and I accidentally left it in my car overnight. And then I went in there the next day and there was a rat that was frozen. It froze to death inside the shake and it was trying to climb out. And so I've never had Culver's since then, and it just ruined it. Culver's didn't do it, but I mean, it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I just think about that, seeing that frozen. It's like eyes were white too, because its eyes were like frozen too. So it was bad.
It's like when you throw something up, you never eat it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, beer, that's a different story. But hey, I totally understand that. We're like, yeah, I threw up green beans as a kid, and I haven't had green beans since then. Now,
SpaghettiOs for me. It was one time, and I was like, nope, never again.
What the hell is wrong with you throwing out spaghetti? I still eat SpaghettiOs like probably about once a week. This just because it's super cheap, and I'm still living on a college budget basically. Yeah, the meatball SpaghettiOs, oh, those are the best.
I used to love them as a kid. I loved them, and
Although
then I got sick and just
I went a
nope.
year without eating them because I hate onions, and there was like a little sliver of an onion, I think, in like one of them. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not doing that again. And then finally it just got to the point where I was like,
You're not
okay,
getting me.
I was like, okay, it's like a 1 in a million chance, basically. So then I started eating them again. But yeah, it is fascinating how like just one. So nutrition wise, what were some of the biggest nutritional changes that you made? Because that's a whole podcast in and of itself.
Oh, my off season is actually pretty structured. Like I do weekly cheat meals. When I get really close to starting a prep, I get a little free in the sense that like I'll buy a cake from Publix and I'll spend the whole week eating it every night. So for me, I have a huge sweet tooth. So it's cutting out sweets that's hard for me. I don't crave burgers or sushi or pizza. I could care less about that stuff. But you put some chocolate chips or cookies or cake or anything in front of me, and I'm like, hmm. And so I cut out a lot of, I don't use any sauces in prep. Like a lot of people have this, like, oh, look at this 0 calorie sauce I have. That's all great and good. But when I make that mental switch, I'm eating for a purpose, not for pleasure. You have to stop thinking as food as a pleasure source. You have to think of it as fuel. And at that point, like I use salt and pepper, and I control every variable possible.
Why can't it be both pleasure and fuel for you? But so please don't tell me you're one of those people that uses mustard though on their chicken.
I don't like mustard.
Okay,
I eat
thank
chicken and
Christ.
rice with salt and pepper. That's it.
Thank God, because I have so many people that come on and I'm like, okay, at what point do you consider like maybe not doing this anymore if you have to put mustard on your catch or on your chicken? Because yeah, for me that is, but again, that just shows the dedication of the sport and all that goes to be. So how does your husband deal with your like restrictive diet? Does he sometimes like tiptoe around it? Or if it was me, like I would just be taunting you. I'd be ordering like pizza all night and just leaving it out in front of your door just so you could smell it, even though I know that doesn't affect you, but just because it would make me laugh. So how does he deal with the restrictive side? Because he doesn't compete himself.
Well, he's too afraid to taunt me, I'll tell you that. But in all fairness, I told him when I started this prep, I said, I am fully aware that prepping and my diet is my decision, and I will never punish you for that. I will never get angry at you for eating whatever it is that you want to eat because if I really wanted it, I could have it. And so I wish more competitors had that mindset because people will get angry at their partners for eating in front of them. And it's our choice. We are 100% making this choice. That is champagne problems right there, honey. And so like he does order things that he knows I don't crave, like wings. He will not order French fries because that's hard. That is hard for me. Um, and so it's just we communicate very, very well. And so he knows that there are things that I don't care if he eats in front of me. I don't care if he orders pizza. I don't care if he orders wings. That stuff does not bother me. I'm not tempted by it. I don't want it. But he's not going to sit next to me and eat cake and ice cream. He'll eat it in the kitchen. Um, I can have it in the house. I just can't have it in my face. And he doesn't offer me bites of anything, which is good.
Well, now we got the most important question. What's your favorite type of French fry? Or is there a favorite place that you have that makes the best French fries? Because I have a list of like my top 20 French fries.
Taco Mac has the best sweet potato fries, and I'm a sucker for sweet potato fries. But I'm not biased. I love all fries. I will eat
I
any
like
fry you
waffle
put in
fries
front of me.
myself. Waffle fries are
Oh,
my go. Yeah.
I like the thin ones, the real
Oh yeah.
like shoestring fries, I guess. I'm not a big fan of the big like. I like the potato wedges, but not like the steak cut fries. Not my favorite.
It's weird though because like I would never think this from a fast food place, but Wendy's is like in my top 5. Like Wendy's for some reason they
Wendy's
got
has really
really
good
good
fries.
fries. Yeah.
It's because they put that big salt granules on them. They're so salty.
Yeah.
And I'll mess up some Arby's fries. Either one, the curly ones or the straight ones. Them things are
So
good.
this is what's gonna make me seem weird. I've never had Arby's in my life, and there's plenty of
It's
them
so
around here.
underrated.
I just never
It's
had
so
it.
underrated.
Well, because for me, I'm just a burger guy. Where it's like Arby's doesn't really have a. I don't even know if they have a burger, but it's like no. I mean, it's like Taco Bell. I'm the guy that just goes and gets like the churro, basically, or like the cinnamon swirls, and then I'll get like a quesadilla or something like that, just a plain quesadilla. So yeah, I'm a lot of fun, especially on Saturday nights driving friends around at 2:30 in the morning. So but hey, it was funny though because so I drove. My brother had his 10-year high school reunion like 2 years ago, and I drove him and his friend home. It was like no, it was they had it last year because of COVID, so they had to wait a year. But he's a couple years older than me. But so we went to the drive-through. $160 later, they got all their food.
That's impressive.
I should have saved their order and like what they got, and then I was like, "Why are you guys gonna eat that?" And he's like, "No, my brother's at home." His friend was like, "Oh, my brother's at home, so I'll give some to him." But it was, yeah, I'd never seen that much money exchanged for that amount of food. But hey, I got to give props to him. But I love to talk genetics on this podcast because everyone has that one body part that really takes off, and everyone has that one body part that drags behind. I'm the exact opposite of you, where my upper body, my back, especially because I've worked jobs in warehouses my entire life, where loading 60-pound packages for 8 hours a day when I was in my early 20s, you're going to get a nice back regardless. I mean, you could be
Hmm.
the most, but I'm also 6'3" as well, so my legs and my lower body are just. I've made the joke that I could inject pure muscle into my legs, and they're not gonna gain an ounce. It's just not gonna happen. But your lower body really took off. So what did you do for your upper body? Because as someone who's never really had to train upper body that much, how did you grow that eventually over the years? Because that to me is like how I would get my legs to grow, which to me is almost impossible.
So going into my 2020 show, I would have a hamstring day and a leg, like a quad focus day every week, and I did back once a week and shoulders once a week. When my feedback yet again was to continue to grow my upper body, and I was actually told, "Do not grow your glutes at all." And I was like, "All right." So I switched my training split. I now only do one leg day a week. I only do 2 or 3 quad movements and 2 or 3 hamstring movements, and I do back twice a week. And I added a shoulder movement to my push day so that I hit shoulders twice a week. Kind of. I do my push day. I start with 100 lateral raises, and it has really capped out my shoulders. And I do a weight that I 20, 25 pounds. Something I can really rep out. And I do reps of 20, 25 until I reach the 100, and that my shoulders will be so full of blood. And then I go train chest and arms, but that has really made a difference in my shoulders. Then having the 2 back days where I have one day where I focus on thickness and one day where I focus on width has made a big difference as well. Also, making sure my body mechanics are correct. I used to get terrible forearm pain when I was lifting, and I didn't realize it's because I'm pulling with my bicep so much. And I have huge arms. I don't train them at all. I can't. They're just like one of those things. I have the genetics that men love. Like my calves and my biceps are huge for no reason. And
What? Calves? That's my
yes,
number one. That's my number one hated. I hate that more than life itself. That's the most genetic body part of all time. I went to a show and I told the guest that I was going to meet at the show. I said, "I'm just going to flex my calves for you once, just so you can laugh, just so we can get the laughter out of the way." It's ridiculous.
yeah, yeah. No, I don't train them at all. I wear heels every day to work, and that's it. And so I realized that what I need to do is pull my elbow to my lap and pull with my elbow. And I have Versa grips, and I make a point to take my fingers off. I hold with one finger when I pull, and so everything has to come from my elbow, and that's made a big difference. Like actually, I purchased a live stream from North Americans because I wanted to hear the commentators. Like I wanted to hear what they were saying. And when I opened up, they were like, "Oh, nice back," and I was like, "Finally!" But then again, my feedback was, "Improve your V taper. Don't grow your legs." So I reached out to Matt and I was like, "All right, Matt, what do you want to do with my training split? Because we still need to grow upper body, and I do 2 or 3 quad movements a week, and I can't grow them anymore. I don't. I like training legs too. Like it's one of my favorites. So
Well, you mentioned forearms, and I do gotta say forearms are basically the calves of the upper body, two words. But here's the thing: being a baseball pitcher, that's one of the main groups that I train. You do like that thing where you'd have that
hmm
weight on a rope, and then you just curl it up with your forearms, and then you do the like you just do the squeezing. Like I had one of those in class all the time that I do. I'd be that annoying guy that would do it every once in a while. But so yeah, my forearms are probably like the best, just because I've done them for so long, because it was really good on curveballs and velocity things. So I was really into that. But yeah, forearms are, it's one of those, just like calves, it isn't, really talked about as much, but good God, you don't have to train arms. I've had a handful of guests on there like that, and I was like, just swap genetics with me for one day, just one day, so I can just feel that. Because yeah, the gym bro in me is like, well, even if I did have, like, because my arms are pretty like good, like genetic wise, but like still being a gym bro, you have to do it like at least twice a week, just to
hmm
do. I mean, that is just how it is. But when you get to walk on that stage after showing off, or excuse me, after working for months upon months and being able to finally show off that physique, what is that moment like for you?
I love being on stage, and I will say I was a lot more nervous for figure than I was for physique. I've gotten really comfortable being barefoot. So having to put heels back on, I was like, "Oh, please don't fall." And I had switched up one of my side poses to where I like cock my leg, and I was having a hard time balancing. And so on stage for figure, I was in my head because I'm like, "Don't fall," And I did. I was shaking. I was like, I literally said, "Get your shit together, Heather. Come on." And but for women's physique,
I wish they would have had you mic'd up so then everyone in the audience would have heard that. Now that would have been hilarious.
I was like, "Get it together." And so, but with women's physique, I prayed before I went on stage, and I was like, "Lord, give me peace." And I had been very much in prayer my whole prep because it was a very difficult prep. And I really think that He did that so that I could say that He was the only reason I got there. And so I posed a song called Oceans, which is a Christian song. And I was like, Lord, take my nerves. This is for you. Like, let me just focus on why I'm here and what my purpose is, and let them feel you through this song. And I had so many people pulling me aside backstage telling me that they had goosebumps. And I was like, that's exactly what I wanted. So thank you. And so in that moment, I was lost in my purpose, which was not the stage in that at that time. So
It's always good to not really be thinking about the stage when you're on the stage, though. Like if you're just in that mindset all the time of like, oh my god, I'm in front. So like, yeah, if I was able to distract myself and be like thinking about something else, yeah, that would, I think, make things so much easier. And I mean, when they announced your name and you realized I'm a pro now, what was that moment like? Because for so many guests that I have on, winning that pro card is the highlight of their career, regardless of what they go on to do. Now, obviously, like if you win the Olympia, then that might be the highlight.
right.
But like for most of them, that is the highlight, just because that's the affirmation that all the hard work that you put in is paid off, and now you're the little fish in the big pond again. But what was that exact moment like for you when they announced your name and you're like, oh my god, I'm a pro?
So I'll give you a little bit of a segue because in prejudging, I had an odd number in my class, and so I was dead center. So after prejudging, I had an idea that I could win. And I had my emotional response after prejudging. Like I got off stage, and like before I could even get to the competitor area, I was crying, and it was just like an overwhelming relief. But
Okay,
I would not let.
what if they gave you second then after seeing that? They're like, oh, this cocky person thinks that they're gonna win.
And that's exactly why I would not speak about it. And everybody was telling me, congratulations, call me an IFBB pro. And I said, no. I said, it is not done until it is announced. I said, because anything can happen. And I was like, it is not done until they announce it. And I wouldn't let anybody talk to me about it. I'm like, no, game's not over yet. It could go anyway. And especially because I had friends that were coaches and other people around me that were competing that had said that they did not place where they thought they were going to based on where they were standing at prejudging. And so I was like, I was backstage anxious, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to have anxiety. I'm just so thankful to be here. I if even if I am top two, I'm so incredibly happy with that. I was incredibly happy with my placing in top five in women's physique, especially because this was my first time on a national stage. Like I walked in with zero expectations. It was just enjoy this moment. You worked hard to be here, and just take up every moment. Don't take any of your joy out of it. And I tried really hard to stay in that mindset. I lost it a little bit that Wednesday, but I came back to it. But um, that moment standing on stage when it was me and one other girl, I was like, okay. And I listened, and I just happened to be standing right behind the podium, and so when they opened it, I could see that it was me, and I looked my husband dead in the face, and I screamed, "We did it!" like on stage, and I was like, "Excuse me, guys." It was such a moment of relief and elation, and I think I've been on cloud nine ever since. Like I still have a hard time. Like I can't believe I did that. Like it's still not real. It's not really doesn't feel any different, but it does have the sense that, like you said, the validation almost. Like I did it. Like I've all this hard work that I've put in for 6 years. I finally reached this first stage of the goal.
Have you had that moment though where you're just like, oh crap, I really need to put in some serious work now if I'm going to compete in these pro shows?
Yes.
Like the celebration's good at once, but then when that realization finally sits in, that you're like, wait, I got to compete against those people now.
Well, that too, and all of my feedback has been that they like me better in figure. Obviously by my placings, but because I did well in women's physique, I reached out and I said, "Where do you want to see me progress in the pro league? Like, where do you want me to focus?" And everybody was like, "You look like a figure competitor." And so, like, I'm looking at people like Sid Gillian, and their nutty shapes. And World of Zebia, I forget her real name, but like these women are phenomenal. And I'm like, well, I'd have a lot of work to do,
Sid Gillen's going to win until she decides to retire. That's just going to be the thing.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
I've got to be able to fly away with my laps. And so, that's why I won't pro debut till 2024. Got to take the time off, got to put in the work and kind of see what I look like come that time and see if I'm ready for the pro leagues because we're peons again, you know?
Yep, that's the thing. You gotta. It's just like going from the big stud in high school to your freshman year in college, where you're just like, yep, okay, I'm back to being almost nothing again and having to
Yeah.
work my way up. But I mean, let's be completely honest. You're not the average looking woman. If you were to go out in public, even dressed the way you are right now, because like you get to a certain point where you get so like muscular that like even if you're wearing a hoodie, like it's very hard to hide. But I like to compare it to being like a mini celebrity, where you're gonna draw people's attention just because it's human nature when they see something that's not of the normal to just be like, what's going on here? Like, what's that? What's that all about? And what has that been like dealing with that? And has it gotten easier for you to accept the fact that you are going to get stares as your career's gone on, or is it still one of those things where you're like, okay, this is still kind of weird?
It still makes me uncomfortable, and I don't know if part of that is because of the autism. But my
Well,
husband made a
I was gonna
comment.
say, yeah, getting people's attention.
Yeah,
That's what I've
I
heard, at
don't
least for
like.
autistic people. That's like the worst thing ever is to have everyone's
Yeah,
attention on you.
yeah, I don't like to be looked at like that. I don't like attention drawn to me at the gym. Like, I don't like people that are training with me to yell at me. I'm like, nope, do not draw attention over here. I'm not a loud grunter. Like, I train very quietly. Um, but my husband made a comment in the Pittsburgh airport because I had on a tank top, and he was like, "You might as well have a horn growing out of your head. The amount of people that stare at you." He was like, "I see less people look at people with like green or purple hair. Not that I care what anybody else looks like. I obviously, I just want to be left alone." Um, and I will say, like, I have called people out before. It depends on how aggressive they are being with their staring because I think it's very rude. I don't like to be asked if I can be touched, and that's a very common request, especially in the South.
Hang on,
If
I just got
someone,
to go on a tangent here. Like, don't do that ever. Like what's at least they asked that, but like still, like I've heard stories like people
yeah,
that just walk up to you and they just like feel your arms. They might do something
hmm
it's like what, first of all, who raised you, and second of all, it's like don't just don't do it. Like it's like I went to like I said a million times, I went to that bodybuilding show. I had no urge at all to go up and touch it. I mean, it's like it. I don't understand. Now I get like some people have like a fetish for all that crap and stuff like that, which is a whole underbelly issue. But like it's like be polite about it. And if they say no, then just realize that it's no. But it's like I just don't get that myself personally.
yeah, they'll be like, and I get a lot of underhanded compliments from women, like, "Good for you for carrying around all that muscle," and I'm like, What do you mean by that?"
That's
Like,
as southern as it gets. Good for you for carrying on all that muscle.
yeah, I'm like, "That's the most backhanded compliment I've ever heard," you know? But yeah, they'll ask, like, "Will you flex for me?" And I'm like, "No, no, I won't." Like, there are plenty of women that capitalize on that, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that is their MO, but that is not mine. And, but, like, I was in the gas station the other day, and this one fella, I'm more aggressive with men than I am with women. Women bother me less, and I do get stared at more by women, in all fairness, but some men are just flat out rude. And I was in a little QT gas station, and it was so bad that he was kind of following me around and peering over. He was peering over like the edges of the aisles, and I was like, "Can I help you?" Like, and I said, "It is so rude the way that you were staring." So that everybody looked at him, and I was like, "That's what it feels like to be stared at." And then I walked out because I was like, "You have to understand what it feels like when everybody's boring their eyes in you. It's uncomfortable. Don't do that to somebody. It's rude."
And people, it's like, how have you not mastered in my 28 years of living on this planet, I've mastered you look up every like 5 seconds or something like that for like half a second. You just look up. You don't have to be staring at them constantly. Like
It's
even
like,
if I saw someone that's 9.5 feet tall, you still just look up every once in a while, then look down for about 10 seconds, look up for a little. I mean, it's simple. It's not. I just don't get that. I mean, that's how we're taught as guys, especially when we see an attractive woman too. It's like, yeah, you don't stare the entire time. You just, yeah, you get a little side glance, then go back to doing what you're doing. Just a little side glance. So again, some people just lack that basic, stuff. But yeah, I mean, that to me was when I was in a lot better shape, like when I was in college. I mean, let's be honest. The college years are completely different. So girls would come up and feel my arms, and I'd pump it up for a little bit, because it's the college years. It's a completely different time in my life. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I can understand how that can be, a little weird as well. But now we go to the bane of my existence. I hate it more than life itself, cardio. And when I say cardio, I mean actual running. I go for walks all the time. But you said before that you basically had to kill yourself with cardio. But what is your relationship like with cardio now? Because hopefully you're not killing yourself on that treadmill.
Oh, no. Well, my off season, I do 20, 30 minutes 4 or 5 days a week. So it's very low maintenance. It's more just for cardiovascular health at that point. The highest cardio that I got this prep was 55 minutes in the morning and 40 in the evening, 6 days and 5 days a week. But my last prep, I was doing 2 hours every day, except I got like 1 hour break, like one evening where I didn't have to do cardio, and it was all stair climber. Like, my poor knees. I have what's called a summit trainer in my garage, which is kind of like a cross between an elliptical and a stair climber. It's a very vertical gliding. So your legs aren't going in a circle; they're going up and down like you're doing a mountain climber crunch. And I love that. It builds my muscles in my legs and burns like 600 or 700 calories in an hour doing that, but it saves my knees. So I do that in the morning, and then I do the stair climber post training at the gym. just because it just burns so many calories. And it actually builds leg muscles. I don't know why people think it burns your leg muscles. It's, it's a resistance training. And that's kind of where with this prep was just a lot better.
I will say though, this is gonna make you maybe queasy, but my average shift, so I do my 8 hour shift and a lot of it's walking. I'll get anywhere between 19,000 to 25,000 steps in a day, and that's the equivalent of me doing like speed walking basically, or just power walking for about 2.5 hours. So I mean, the most I ever got was I was at UPS and I worked like a 18-hour shift just because they were paying a ridiculous amount of money, and I think I got like 60 something thousand. It was like 64, 65, and
Insane.
I've told the story plenty of times, but like my feet were wet, and then when I got home, I realized it was just dried blood from my feet because they blistered up. So I walked more than a marathon basically. So
Wow.
I always tell my friends that we run marathons, they're like, "Oh, it's so hard," and I was like, "Really? I walked it, and it wasn't that bad." I mean, my feet were bleeding, but again, that's because I was wearing, you know, I was wearing warehouse shoes, not your running shoes. So I think that might have been, the problem right then and there. But this is something that hits super deep to me because, as you can tell, I am very sleep deprived right now, but sleep is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing. I say this a million times. Anyone tells me different, I always tell them, go pull an all-nighter and tell me how that works out for you, trying to do what you do then the next day, which again, I have firsthand experience of, especially tonight. But what is your experience like with sleep? Because especially as you get closer to a show, people don't understand that your sleep schedule just gets so messed up. But how do you try to maintain a somewhat decent sleep schedule? Because how you guys sometimes go and work out on like 2 to 3 hours of sleep or even less than that is just the most amazing thing to me.
So when I am in prep, I am incredibly regimented. And so during the work week, I get up at 4:30. So I'm in bed by 8:30, usually 9 o'clock every night.
God, what a grandma.
Luckily, yeah, I know. I'm old as hell. Luckily, my husband likes to go to bed early too because we're both early risers. But I will say, previous preps, like as a nurse practitioner, I came from a program where I was on call 24/7 for 2 years. That's why I left that program because it was not healthy. Um, and there was not a single night for 2 years that I got a full night's sleep because the phone would ring. And I think that was another reason I had such a hard time getting lean, is because I could not rest. I was chronically exhausted. And this now I have a new job that I switched over in 2021, and I have no call obligations. And I have 4 dogs, and I do let 2 of them sleep in the bed. So I have 2 little Frenchies, little heat warmers, that like to go in and out of the covers all night long. So I am woken up quite a bit, but it doesn't really bother me because I go right back to sleep. But
What are the
I,
other two type of dogs?
I have a boxer named Lacey and a Doberman named Athena. And then we have 2 cats.
What the hell? Jesus.
Yeah, we have a farm. He had the cats, I had the 3 dogs, and then someone was giving Athena away on Instagram. She was spending a lot of time in a crate, and she was only 13 weeks old at the time, and we had just enclosed our patio. And I have 3 dogs that were doggy door trained to go outside, and very, so I was like, honestly, Adam, one more, they'll train her. They'll entertain themselves, and that's exactly what happened. So we went and got her.
I remember when my aunt was getting a dog, it was a choice of either a French bulldog or a rat terrier, and she chose the rat terrier. And
Ugh.
Frenchie. I mean, those things are just. Well, those are my kind of dogs because they're just ADHD personified. Those rat terriers, they're just hyper as hell. But my brother's roommate, who I'm gonna go see them like on Friday because I go and check in on them and stuff. They have a boxer that I swear to God is a Great Dane. Honestly, like it's the biggest box. Like it's the size. So I'm 6'3", and when it stands on its hind legs, it's as tall as me. It can put its
That
paws
is a
on
big
me.
boxer.
It's knocked me over 3 times on chairs because it's the friendliest dog ever. Like it acts like it's like a 5-pound dog, but it's a monster basically. Like it doesn't know its own strength either, so it'll come up to you and it'll knock you over just because it's just being it. But like, yeah, it is crazy. But yeah, so we had to go on my dog tangent because I'm the biggest dog lover of all time. I'm making a compilation of all the times we either talk about dogs or dogs appear on the podcast. So that is
I love
that's
it.
gonna be a thing. But yeah, sleep, good God. So being that you are in the nursing field, I do got to ask because like I'm in Minnesota, which is always one of the top 2 healthiest states in the country. It's either between us or Maine. Like every year we sort of trade off. We have so many nature parks. We have like it's a very, very healthy state where so many people are in shape. But I even went to the Minnesota State Fair and just seeing how, especially I think during COVID, like people have put on so much more weight and it's gotten even worse than it already was at. And it was already bad enough as it is. And I'm not going to stereotype the South, but the South is known for having a higher rate of obesity than a lot of other
That's
places.
we're in the fried chicken belt.
Exactly. Well, and again, you guys had the cuisine to support it. So I was like, if you guys didn't have the cuisine and you were that obese, I'd be like, okay, there's something wrong there. But like when you look at what how good a food is, where I'm Norwegian, so I got lefse and lutefisk, which is not it's horrible. Lefse is all right. Lutefisk is just fish with shit put in it, and it's not good. But what advice do you have for people just to stop gaining so much weight? Because I think we're reaching a tipping point, especially as a nation, where it's like we're almost at the point of no return when it comes to our obesity.
I will say what I tell a lot of my patients is I can't care more than they do. People have to take ownership of their own health and fitness. Like I have a girlfriend, she's trying to lose some weight. And so a lot of people reach out to me, and I've stopped giving free advice because people don't value free advice. So with that, she was telling me that she joined a weight loss clinic and they put her on a 900 calorie a day diet. And I said, no, absolutely not. I said, you're going to shut down your metabolism. Like the misconceptions around food, people think they have to either starve themselves, cut out all carbs, or cut out everything that they love. And I was like, well, your problem is that you drink a bottle of wine every night. I said, just cut that out. Just cut out one thing.
Wait, a
Cut out.
bottle of wine a night?
She's a nurse. Yes. Healthcare is rough right now. Not excusing her drinking. I'm just saying there's a lot of alcoholism in nursing because of the stress.
I was gonna say an AA brochure would probably do more help than that, but yeah, Jesus.
And so start with the little things. You don't have to make a drastic difference. You don't have to do a gut cleanse. You just have to make smarter decisions. And the more consistency you have, the more successful you will be.
Well, geez, that's making me rethink going to the hospital for anything again. If my nurse has been drinking a bottle of wine, no, I'm just kidding. But
after shift.
I was good. I was gonna say like during, but like no, yeah, being what healthcare workers have gone through, yeah, I totally understand why someone would go to that extreme. Because for me, like I said, I just work warehouse stuff, so it's like that can be stressful enough for me. But I can't imagine like having other people's life in my hands and stuff like that. That's a job that is totally, I think, undervalued and needs to be brought up. Because I've always said nurses, I'm sorry, they do more. Excuse me, they do more than doctors. I don't really. I've always said that. It's like doctors, yeah, they might check up on you once for like 5 minutes and be like, "Oh yeah, this is what you need to do to them." But it's like nurses, yeah, they're the ones that take care of everyone and do everything. And I have friends that have doctors, and I was like, "Well, congratulations on doing less than a nurse." I always give them that joke, and then they get a little offended by that. And I said, "You went to school for 7 years just so that you could, I have a thing with doctors because they think that they're better than a lot of people, especially my friends that are doctors. They have that sort of thing where it's like, it's cool, you wasted more money on college, and then sometimes I show them what I'm making as a warehouse worker, and then I'm like, I'm making more than you, and that's just because I got lucky with my job. But then also, so anyways, not talking about finances here on this podcast, but I do bring that up just so I can see the doctor's face when they're like, okay, this is BS. Now granted, this is a first year doctor. Now if I'm talking to someone that's my age and also has been a doctor for a while, yeah, they're making significantly more than me. But anyways, so yeah, that's my, again, we got to get my tangents done out of the way because like I said, I'm running on empty here. But the final two questions before we wrap things up here. I mean, I asked this to every single guest. Heather, if someone were to walk up to you and say, we made the decision and you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh, wow. Probably the culture around social media and the sexualization of the women in the sport. I'd bring it back to its true roots of the value of muscularity and showcasing the aesthetics of it without hypersexualization of it.
Yeah, I do posing thumbnails for some guests, like if they want to do that, and that really just seeing some of the comments down below where I'll just have them do like a front double and then I'll have them do like a back and then I choose the thumbnails that I want to do, and then I'll sometimes just release the video like if I know that it's going to get like some views and I get the permission. But like, yeah, some of those comments down below, it's like, dudes, like, what are you doing here? And then I've heard some stories and like, yeah, it needs to go back to, it's like, you don't see that happen nearly as much with the guys. Now it does happen with the guys, but not nearly to the extreme that it does with the women where, I do not. Yeah.
And honestly, the more muscular women get, the more of a fetish we become.
Yeah, and it's not really that much I don't think for bikini competitors, it's really not that huge. I mean, there is some around there, but like, yeah, when you get to like the top tier, like the Andrea Shaws, like, so that's a whole different podcast that eventually when I want to get canceled, I'm just going to talk all about and just trash everyone that does that. And then, I'll lose half my viewers because let's be honest, half of them are those freaks out there that listen, that are into that shit. And, hey, I'll call them out right now, but hey, whatever. I've given them so much free stuff from listening to this podcast that, I can call them whatever I want. But, yeah. And that's one thing that I would honestly look into myself as well, because that is, That and like pay too, where it's like the pay thing. It's like you're not going to get into this sport if you want to make money, and if you do, you're an idiot. I'll sell you a timeshare in Florida. Then basically, then if you think that bodybuilding is for the money, but yeah,
I'll tell you the other thing is that they have gotten rid of figure and women's physique at the Arnold.
that too. Oh yeah, and what do they have? Like I saw some of those shows. They had like the women's slap competition. They had like the slap competition there and stuff like that. And then they did like, yeah, it's ridiculous. They got to get more exposure to where it's like they used to have bodybuilding, men's and women's, on ESPN back in the day, and it's like now they have cornhole. It's like, yeah,
Now
cornhole.
it's Facebook live streams.
Hey, cornhole is a real game of champions. I will say that takes real skill and athletic ability to play cornhole. But yeah, but that would be my thing as well. And I mean, Heather, it was so great talking to you, and I'd love to have you on a year from now, just sort of catch up and
Sure.
see what you've been up to. Where would you like to be at in an ideal world a year from today?
Preparing for my pro debut.
That's right. That's right. You're taking the 2 years. See, I like it. You're one of the handful of, so like out of like the 500 bodybuilders I've had on, you're like one of the probably maybe dozen of them that like actually take the time off and focus on the health, which is important, because then I'm not gonna lie, like out of the 500 guests I've had on, there's like 50 of them that aren't competing anymore just for that reason alone, that like they've burnt themselves off way too quickly.
They
And
will.
then
They'll damage their organs. They'll damage their mindset. You got to take time away.
especially the ones that are younger than me and are doing interesting things to themselves, which I'm
Hmm.
not going to dabble into, but you know what I'm talking about. But like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's something. But again, lastly, I should say, actually, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Just my husband for being amazing and dealing with my stubborn ass over the last 10 months.
I mean, yeah, he's good. God, he's went above and beyond the Call of Duty for that one. So more
Yes,
power to him.
he
But
is a saint.
yeah, again, everyone go and check out Heather's Instagram page. I'll leave a link down below. Buy everywhere. You will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. But again, Heather, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey with us. I absolutely appreciate it, and it was great talking to you.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
All right, everyone. This is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.